Good afternoon, passengers. Welcome to Martel Air. My name's Amanda, and I'll be your pilot for today. We're just beginning boarding for flight number 24 from Cairns to Lizard Island. So grab your seats while I finish up the last steps of the pre-flight inspections of this Cessna Grand Caravan, the pride of the Martel Air fleet. So yes, we are starting a little bit later than the typical setup today because I spent the morning out at a small, very small pop culture convention, which was an interesting little experience. That button. Before engine start checklist. Pre-flight inspection complete. Parking brake handle set. Electrical system switches off. Ignition switch normal. Fuel tank selectors both on. Bleed air heat switch off. Power lever. Here's something that comes up in the pre-flight inspections, is checking that the controls are responsive. And here's why we do our checklists. And of course that pops up on that window because of course it does. Why does everything want to pop up on the main screen? Let's see how many times this tries to pop up. So, little pause while we address something found in the checklist. So, there we go. Controls are alive now. So yes, this is why we do checklists, to make sure everything is running properly. So, power lever to idle. Prop RPM to max. Fuel condition lever to cut off. And fuel shut off knob fully in check. Battery switch off, on. Cabin lights on. Cockpit lighting set. Flaps up. No smoking lights on. Or engine start checklist complete. Good afternoon, passengers. The weather today is cloudy and a little bit windy, and we'll be cruising at an altitude of about 8,000 feet, flying over more of the North Queensland coast, including, I believe, Port Douglas and Cooktown, on our way to Lizard Island, which I had never heard of before, but when I saw the name Lizard Island at about an hour and something's flight up the coast from here, I could not resist. Your cabin crew today is me, assisted as always by my co-pilot, Wing Commander Lamington. And your emergency exits are located to the back of the cabin where you entered the plane. I also have a door up here by me, and if you see me leave, please follow me quickly. Our in-flight catering services are provided by our wonderful passengers, so I hope you pack something interesting. We also have a Ko-fi machine in the back of the plane for those who'd like to support the channel, and Wing Commander Lamington's dog treats habit. Engine start checklist. Battery switch on. Beacon light on. Avionics 1 on. Bus volts check. Emergency power lever normal. Inertial separator handle to bypass. EIS readings all active. Propeller area clear. Fuel boost switch on. Fuel boost on shown check. Fuel pressure low not shown check. Fuel flow read 0 check. Starter switch start. Fuel ignition on shown check. Oil PSI registering in system check. NG stable. Fuel condition low idle. Fuel flow and expected range check. NG climbing. NG stable. Starter switch off. EIS readings normal. Generator load check. Battery amps positive check. Fuel boost switch normal. Avionics 2 on. And nav lights on. Engine start checklist complete. We're now ready for departure, so please fasten your seatbelts and turn off your devices apart from those used to watch this stream. Thank you for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die. So yes, I'm a little bit flustered coming into today's stream just because it's a little bit delayed because of my morning out and doing things, but knowing that I'd actually have somebody to talk to made me extra keen to make sure I got today's done. So as we get further north up around the Cape, there's not any major airports anymore. We're basically at the last major airport for quite a while. I think Darwin might be the next one, which is a few weeks off yet. I'm not sure exactly how many streams, but... Oh no, you did not get the date wrong. You sent your Discord message at almost exactly the time I should have been starting. But yes, so it's going to get interesting for picking airports as we go further north and up around Cape York, because it's not really that populated because it's horrendous weather and rainforest and jungles. Okay. Before departure, taxi checklist. Taxi lights on. Seatbelt lights on. Taxi clearance. Cairns ground, Martel 24 with information Golf, request taxi for takeoff, north departure. Taxi 2 and hold short, runway 15, using taxiway Alpha, Alpha 4, cross runway 33, Bravo 4, Bravo, Bravo 2, across runway 15, Martel 24. That is an odd set of taxi instructions, but we'll see how it goes. Taxi clearance check. Nav source set. Prop RPM to minimum. Fuel condition low idle. Inertial separator bypass. And parking brake off. Before departure taxi checklist complete. Now, clear that way. Clear that way. Lovely. And going in that direction. So, through the magic of a reverse engine, which we actually put the prop RPM back up for. Come on. And very important thing is to not slam the brakes on while using the reverse thrust, because that goes badly. Holding position, Martel 2-4. So yes, how have you been? How has anybody else in the passenger cabin been? Where is this plane that I am being told to hold position for? Better not be the one behind me. It's been a slightly odd couple of weeks for streaming stuff, just with timetable chaos. Yeah, Wonder Woman's invisible plane. Not sure what's going on with that. Let's just continuing taxi, Martel 2-4. Got slightly confused initially at the Wonder Woman comment, just because I start looking around going, wait, what extra thing did I put in, before I remembered the whole invisible plane thing. Now, this is the runway crossing, which that may have been what the hold position was about. Cairns Tower, Martel 2-4 requests permission to cross the active runway. Crossing runway 33, Martel 2-4. And you know, some of these things are not built into flight sims stuff, but we can roleplay what we like. I think that may in fact be what the hold position call was about. But yeah, the cross the runway calls should always come from the tower, not from the ground controller, because the runway belongs to the tower. A little insight into air traffic control for you there. Okay, so we've got a decent amount of taxiway to get you going. But yes, air traffic control has a lot of very complicated interlocking systems. So you have the ground controller, whose domain is everything on the taxiways, including all of the vehicles. In a real airport, they would be talking to the ground controller. Essentially, they're in charge as soon as you leave the runway. The runways themselves belong to the tower controller. So that is approvals to enter the runway in all forms. So ground crews crossing the runway, taxiing aircraft crossing the runway, planes that would like to take off entering the runway, planes that would like to land entering the runway from the sky. And their job is to make sure that you don't have two planes trying to occupy the runway, especially the same bit of runway at the same time, because that goes badly. There's also a rule that whenever you are entering the active runway, such as to line up, you turn all of your external lights on. The landing lights, the strobe lights. Like, this is why we have the landing lights on as part of the before takeoff, before entering the runway checklist. Because you want to be as visible as possible while on the runway. Because planes move quickly and are actually relatively small for their speed. I was about to say for their size, which would be a weird way to put it. Okay. Looks like we are lined up for a partial intersection takeoff, which is actually the cross runway 15 that was in the original taxi instructions from the AI. But we will stop here. Parking brake on. Yes, utterly visible. Small planes are often recommended to not line up exactly on the runway center line because the center line has all of these bright lights to show you where it is. So if you stop like a meter off to one side of the center line, your nice big plane lights are no longer in line with the giant runway lights. Just makes you that little bit more visible. This is another one of those where it's a lesson learned after some crashes. Basically, a plane landed on another plane. It was not good. Okay, before takeoff checklist. Parking brake set. Altimeter QNH set. Yes. Standby flight instruments. Check. Fuel boost switch. Normal. Fuel tank selectors both on. Fuel quantity check. Fuel shutoff knob fully in check. Standby alt power on. Anti-ice, it is 24 degrees outside despite the clouds, so anti-ice not required. Inertial separator normal. Autopilot preparation. Altitude set for initial cruise. Check. Flight level change mode engaged and set to VY. Heading mode engaged and set to runway heading. Check. Bank mode engaged. Autopilot prepared. Nav source is set. Transponder on alt. Flaps to takeoff position. Making sure to set the rim. Takeoff clearance. Cairns Tower, Martel 24, ready for departure to the north, runway 15. Cleared for takeoff, runway 15, Martel 24. Takeoff clearance check. Strobe lights on. Landing lights on. Taxi lights off. Seatbelt lights on. Parking brake release. Fuel condition high idle. Prop up to max. Before takeoff checklist complete. And yes, the way that safety regulations are written in blood is one of the things I find most important to remember. It's always interesting to look at seemingly ridiculous rules and, oh, that's why that's there. And we'll takeoff. So, power advance. Bit of a spicy crosswind on this one, so we're having to stick some rudder in and rotate. As we climb through the turbulence. Cairns Tower, Martel 24, continue for north departure. Well, just making sure we finish our climb out of the airport. It is indeed a little bit bumpy. Let's switch on the autopilot. Engine's getting a little bit spicy. Flaps up. There we go, there's the climb settling in. Start our rotation round towards our actual nav path, which is behind us because south-facing runway and we're heading north. Look, the pun is acknowledged. It's always a bit of a thing of I use spicy and spice to mean a lot of different things. Piney tree. Piney tree, why? Why do you do this to me? Going to 126.1 Martel 24. Cairns approach, Martel 24 is type Cessna Caravan, 3 miles southeast of Cairns, 3,000 feet. Clearance transit for Charlie airspace. Squawk 0502, Martel 24. Cleared through the Charlie airspace, Martel 24. Yes, so we have a bit of a rare treat in, we're getting into far north Queensland, but it is not bright and sunny. What wild adventures await us? And making sure not to go into the noise abatement area over Cairns proper, as opposed to the noisier area of the airport itself. You can see the domestic and international terminals there on the complete opposite side to where we park all the general aviation planes, so you know. If you actually go to Cairns Airport, that's probably the side you're ending up on. It seems to be wet at the moment. How interesting. Cruise climb checklist. Anti-ice system not required. Inertial separator handle normal. Airspeed set to VY. Prop RPM in acceptable range. Power lever set and ITT within acceptable range. Yes, one of the things that I have done recently is ordered myself a new microphone, just something a little bit better than this headset mic. I've decided that it might be nice for just a little bit better audio quality on the stream, and maybe I can filter out some of the stuff that might make it a little less ideal. Finding things that are on special and that I can put my tax return to. The fact that I will be getting a broadcast quality mic and then for a decent amount of the time putting this filter on over the top of it amuses me greatly, given that that filter is essentially cheap microphone sound. But I think that will be a nice little thing to have invested in, both for the channel and for video conferences for work, because that's the only way my co-workers ever see me. So today's stream started a bit late because I went off to what was essentially geek markets with a few more cosplayers and a ticketed entry price. In Canberra we have the geek markets as one of the things that happens every few months. From what I can tell, is it called the Vendors Hall? Traditionally for cons, the area that people buy a space to have a table and sell various things. It's usually called Artists Alley at the Australian ones, at least. So we have the geek markets, which is just that, essentially. And today, which was, let me check the thing, GammaCon, was pretty much that as well. I think I was expecting a little more something, but there were some cool cosplayers there. I recognised a few characters, I chatted to a few people. Oh, and we are out onto the fluffy side of the clouds. It was a nice enough morning out. I bought some cool art off one of the people there, just because it was cool Baldur's Gate fan art, and I know what I'm about. I'm actually looking at setting up to share a table at one of the next geek markets, just because I do digital art, or kind of thrown off my game since Redbubble decided to delete my shop with no reason given and no recalls. But that's much of a thing. And so last week's ramblings about my cosplay plans, where I accidentally pulled up the wrong window onto the left monitor while bouncing between screens. That flowed rather well into this morning's time out. I wasn't originally planning on going, but one of my friends encouraged me to, go to the thing, have some time out, time with friends. That side of it was all quite nice, and seeing the cosplayers, seeing the various things at the Artist Alley. Okay, cruise checklist, since we're now at altitude. Seatbelt lights, it's a bit turbulent for that, so seatbelt lights on, anti-ice off, inertial separator normal. Might actually take us up to 9,000 feet just to get above the cloud cap. So I'm glad of the morning out, but it had a $20 door price as opposed to geek markets, which are free. So, and geek markets honestly had more people selling. There's my GammaCon Canberra review. It was fine. Go to geek markets next time. It did make me more excited to get my cosplay that I'm working on finished, just because going around in that sort of stuff would have been cool for that. So, you know, there's that at least. Okay. And we're basically at altitude, so... as we level off. Oh dear. Hope the internet comes together. Going back to 87%. And 1750 RPM. Fuel balance check. ITT range, lovely. Oh, and such clouds. Aha! You were struck again by the time vortex. All you missed was a little bit of the checklist content. Going to 123.8, Martel 24. Goodbye. Centre, Martel 24, entering your airspace 9,000 feet. Well, it is good that you are now free of the time vortex. We are cruising along above these delightfully fluffy clouds at 9,000 feet, and I am just glancing across at maps and information about Lizard Island, which is apparently also called Jiguru. The name Lizard Island was given to it by Captain Cook when he passed it on 12th of August 1770. The only land animals we saw here were lizards, and these seemed to be pretty plenty, which occasioned my naming the island Lizard Island. Well, and yes, we are thoroughly into Captain Cook territory. I'm not sure what islands we are. Flora and fauna. Most commonly found lizard is the yellow-spotted monitor, skinks, and geckos. Brown-headed snake rarely seen. Marine turtle, green marine turtles and loggerhead marine turtles. So we are not in iguana territory. Yellow-spotted monitor, Varanus panoptes. Oh, proper monitor lizard, which can get up to 1.5 meters long. So, oh yes, Australia has so many skinks and geckos. One of my favourite occasions was coming home and finding a 45 centimetre, so 18-inch blue tongue lizard, which is an exceptionally large skink. Just sitting across my front doorstep, enjoying the temperature of the bricks, I think. I've occasionally seen them just in the little nook around my front door. The last one was just kind of leaning its chin up against the window, just kind of full, just chilling. I don't know what it was doing, just its head was bent back almost 90 degrees and just chin on the glass, hanging out. Unfortunately, it skedaddled before I could return with a camera. But yeah, so finding a skink about this long, solidly chonky, because blue tongues are a chonky sort of skink. Finding one of those just stretched across my front doorstep was my main reason to try to turn my front yard especially into much more natural and nature friendly, because they're clearly hanging out around here. I want to make it a nice space for them with, you know, tasty bugs, tasty flowers. I can't remember which things exactly that they munch on, but making sure it's well set with those. So we're just a little bit out towards the water at the moment, just because of the way it keeps going in and out, but over in that direction is Port Douglas. And you know, there's all sorts of places named weird things along here, and you can't see them because clouds. But the thing that delights me is this little bay over here that we will be flying mostly over is called Cow Bay. It's actually the tiny small one before the large one, but yes, Cow Bay. Oh, and apparently we've got Tongue Reef out here. Set of reefs, so we've got Undine Reef for those Undertale fans, Rudder Reef, which sounds like somebody did themselves a mischief, Opal Reef, Tongue Reef, and Bat with 2 T's Reef. Not sure what Bat Reef will be, but Tongue Reef is creeping me out. And we've got Snapper Island, which is certainly a name. And yes, marvelling at the weird place names is definitely going to be one of the activities for things along here. So in here we have the Daintree River, which is... So the Daintree Rainforest is one of the more famous rainforest areas for Northern Australia, especially on the east coast. So we are definitely into the pretty sort of areas. And Kimberley, but not that Kimberley. Oof, so we've got Shipwreck Bay, and then Cow Bay, and then Thornton Beach, Cape Tribulation, which is just excellent. So speaking of names, one of the things that I was going to be discussing last week, but got briefly distracted and my ADHD took over and never went back to it, was naming the planes, because I have these lovely planes, the Caribou and the Caravan, but I don't have names for them. So the point that I was up to when I got to the massive distractions last week was, I think something in Welsh could be quite fun for naming each of the planes. And I like the names where the name of the thing is the thing that it is. Now, I can't really do caravan in Welsh. This is the point I was distracted during the rambling of, because the word for caravan in Welsh is caravan. Grand Caravan would be caravan fawr, I think. Depends on how you translate great. Could be caravan fawr, caravan da. One of the two. But that's not hugely enticing to me. But the caribou. So, the Welsh for caribou is carwllllyn, which is deer of Scandinavia. Well, that is reindeer, and apparently it could be that caribou, specifically meaning the North American variety of that species, is Canada, which is just deer of Canada. But if we take this is clearly named for being subset of deer, so we wave to Cow Bay on our way past. That's Cow Bay. Hello, Cow Bay. Oh, Canada, we stand on cars and freeze. And it's translating stuff into Welsh, but, you know, it bouncing between several dictionaries. It gets a little interesting. But I think what I might want for the caribou is taking the caru something and also my love of assonance to make a name pop. I think I might be going for Carocariad, beloved deer, or deer of love if you get the weird translation going on, but yes, Carocariad I think will be the name for the caribou at this stage. I think it rolls off the tongue quite nicely. Curious about your opinion on that. And the temptation to name the caravan just Awiren, airplane. I think Awiren might, like, it suits my sense of humour. Yeah, Carocariad it's got that, especially if you're giving it the proper Welsh R, it just bounces really nicely. I think Awiren needs something else. Like, I think that two-part name, so I'll need to find another word that goes with Awiren to make it into a proper name, other than just calling it aeroplane. But then, I say this as somebody who is kind of tempted. Yes, that is the spelling of Awiren as far as I am aware. Awiren pink? Awiren porfor? Porfor? Awiren pinka porfor? Although pink is a lot easier to say than porfor, especially if my brain tries to give it a single F and give it the pronunciation of that, which is just odd. But, you know, it is what it is. Oh, I never turned off those markers from my flight planning. Get out there. I mean, me going through a Welsh dictionary is not exactly going to be the most so yes, I think if I can find the right adjective for Awira, that will be a good sort of name. I don't think colour is quite right. We'll see what I can find. And before today's stuff, I made sure that everything was over on the right monitor, so hopefully we won't have last week's weirdness. So yes, the waypoint that we've got there is Cooktown, which is, you know, the sort of name that you get around here because this is prime lieutenant known as Captain Cook doing his exploration and his other nonsense. May he rest in ignominy, and let's celebrate the day he got killed by Hawaiians. But as we come along here, let's have a look at some more of the reefs that we've got, because these are fun. So moving north from where we were, we've got the morning reef and the evening reef, just so that, you know, you can have the match set there. The Agincourt reefs, if you need to deal with a French army. Escape Reef, which seems related. Ruby Reef, very nice. Endeavour Reef, yeah, name it after your boat. Great, mate. Cairns Reef, no, we're quite a bit north of there now. Emily Reef, Irene Reef, Vicky Harriet Reef. Ribbon Reefs number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Followed immediately by No Name Reef. Yeah, so, oh, and we actually have them nicely pictured. So one of the things that you get out over here is the barrier reef in its very straight line barrier, the outside edge of that wrapping all the way around to ending just east of our destination at Lizard Island, stretching all the way from immediately east of Cooktown. We have that. We've built a wall here, quite possibly ancient coastline, which is why it's so straight. It's giving me that sort of vibes. But there we have the ribbon reefs. So this big V-shaped looking one here that we've got, I believe that is Cairns Reef, with Hope Islands just short of there. I don't know if they have separate... Oh, and the little mini reefs near there, we've got the Delius Patch, Ottaway Patch, and Stonor Patch, which is kind of adorable. These aren't big enough to be reefs, so we'll call them Patch. But yeah, so immediately past... Oh, Startle Reef. But yes, immediately past the just after ribbon number 10 reef is No Name Reef. That just delights me. And then there's many more. Because, I mean, yeah, the Great Barrier Reef is in fact hundreds of smaller islands of reef. Yes, this area has reefs like that one episode of, was it Saturday Night Live? Has cowbell. Like, you can see how these reefs make a pretty good barrier. Because, you know, you sail over those if the water's too shallow, such as, you know, the wrong part of the tide or just the wrong part of the reef, your ship's getting ripped open. And you can't see all of them. They're not always this nice contrasting colour. Sometimes they're just, yeah, there's pointy rock here. Bye-bye. I'm now going to Google what More Cowbell is from, because I've never seen the original. Saturday Night Live, April 8, 2000. There you go. It's all a complicated set of things, none of which I've ever actually seen, because the spread of American TV is like, I can only describe it as oddly patchy. There are things that we are utterly inundated with, and other things that American media treats as just as culturally central that I've never seen. So, you know, so much of The Simpsons, constant bombardment with Seinfeld when it was on, never seen Saturday Night Live. And this part of Australia is back into the crinkly bits zone, which we always enjoy that. So yeah, we've got crinkly bits out one way and wet crinkly bits the other. And cruising along quite nicely. Engines behaving well, temperatures are good, speeds are good. Might leave the seatbelt light on just because it was that bit bumpy before, but let's take it down to 8,000 just for a little bit better of a view. Yeah, I must say, I approve of how salty the crinkly bit sauce is. That's quite to my taste. Now, one thing that I haven't done for the past little while that I was getting into is the poetry readings. Basically, we got through the bits of Banjo Patterson that I know particularly well, and getting into the more complicated stuff that I've never read or heard before, I just kind of dropped off with that. But there is, so this one, I've found something that, if you're interested, could be a nice little addition to the flight to distract us from the town named after someone that we don't like. I've actually got some Swedish stuff, and I think it'll work really well if I do alternating line-by-line translation. So the Swedish line and then the translation work through there. Like, it's not too long, just because look, my ability to do Swedish phonetically is limited, so like this is one of those poems with repeated refrain or chorus, depending on how you define terms. Those get spicy if you actually get into it, but if I I think just doing the shorter repeated section could be quite good if that's something you're interested in pioneering. I'm not sure if it's one that you'll be familiar with, but we'll see. Very pretty fluffy clouds. Rook rook. Reef. Doggo. A reef. Clouds. Crinkly bits. Okay, so let's see how well I can do with some Swedish. And do let me know if you've encountered this one before. And yeah, I did have to look up pronunciation for some of this, despite having heard a few performances of this one. Dansa med oss, klappa era händer. Dance with us, clap your hands. Gör som vi gör, ta några steg åt vänster. Do as we do, take a few steps to the left. Lyssna och lär, missa inte chansen. Listen and learn, don't miss the chance. Nu är vi här med karamelldansen. Now we are here with the candy dance. So depending on how online you are, changes how much I just trolled you. One thing that always amuses me with that is that this was a fairly standard Swedish Europop song. I do enjoy doing the heartfelt reading of it like that, though. That, heartfelt readings of that is just fun. But yeah, so Karamelldansen, which is caramel is from the English caramel, but I don't know if it's from or cognate. But anyway, it has a broader candy sort of meaning. But yeah, so if you listen to the original and you're used to the sped up version, okay, the official stuff gets complicated. But yeah, so if you're used to the sped up version, listening to the original is a bit weird. It actually works better as a song slower at the original Eurodance pace they actually performed it in. But then it got popular in Japan because of, let's go with meme culture, but the fact that it's a misheard, like these lyrics sound like something else in a different language. Which gets weird. The most famous one of Soromimi coming into English would be some Tamil music, particularly Benny Lava. Which is just wild. And apparently the lyrics sound like something a bit like being about balsamic vinegar, which is wild. There's an excellent video about the entire thing, which is actually one of my first exposures. Jan Mieseli's, who wrote Karamelldansen, was actually one of my first exposures to this song. Like, I completely missed the meme first time round. But I'm just trying to find the lyrics because But yeah, like, I actually looked up the proper Swedish lyrics for it. It was great. But yeah, so the whole official thing, if it says it's by Caramel, it's the original. If it says it's by the Caramella Girls, it is the where the rights got sold on completely unrelated to the original band. And then there are so many weird versions, like the official English dub, where they've just translated and then resung the lyrics. But yeah, so apparently it's the Danza Meos sounds like Balsamico. So there's a whole bunch of all the recent the new versions, the holiday versions, is all by the later stuff where they've basically just the guy who owned the rights instead of the band themselves, because commercial pop is like that, just started, it's a meme now, we can cash in. But yeah, so there's this whole bunch of stuff around balsamic vinegar, because the chorus kind of sounds like it starts with balsamico, which is balsamic vinegar. It is utterly weird and delightful. And the dance thing is just like... The dance thing has as much to do... The ears has as much to do with Caramel Dancing as the leak spin has to do with Jevan Polka. Jevan Polka is another one that I will be at risk of getting stuck in my head, but finishes even harder than Swedish, for me at least. And if I get some Finnish lyrics stuck in my head, I will not be able to perform them at all, not even the heartfelt reading. But Jevan Polka is one of, also called Loituma, which is actually the band. It's a Finnish folk song that got recorded by a particular group who did it particularly well and a cappella. And the nonsense section from the middle of it, so the bridge, where you would have the guitar solo, was nonsense singing like you get in jazz, but the reason it sounds so cool is that it's starting from Finnish phonotactic rules instead of English, so you get some really cool sounds out of it that are just unfamiliar. And that bit was taken and looped over a 4-frame gif of some anime character spinning a leak and became a meme. But the rest of the song actually has lyrics. Quite cool lyrics, but they're all in Finnish. It's about a girl who wanted to go dancing. Her name was Eva. So it's Jevan Polka. Was it Hatsune Miku? Orihime from Bleach. Hatsune Miku is Vocaloid, which is a whole wild thing. But yes, Orihime from Bleach. In episode 2, she's twirling a leek while talking to Ichigo Kurosaki and Rukia Fujiki. The scene is an instance of a recurring joke surrounding her character in which she wants to cook something so unusual that it seems almost inedible. But yeah, it's just... Yeah, it is just... It's the Bleach anime and just character twirling a leek. But it, like, the way that the GIF was looped, it synced up to the music fairly well. Look, I have plenty of fandoms where my entire understanding of them is from a fanfic, or more often from Tumblr culture, or Discord weirdos. And honestly, some media franchises, that's the best way to get them. But yes, I am going to drop the name and, more importantly, the spelling for Yevon Hooker into the chat, just so that, look, it's a really cool song. If you look it up on the YouTubes, you can get the actual recordings by Loituma and get the full experience of the song, which is really cool. Like, with no understanding of the words, it is just sonically super cool. Coughing, but not muting, and thus not talking to nothing for 10 minutes like that previous one. And yes, having Blorbos in law is just a very important part of my life. And then you've got your ex-Blorbos. One of the things I've found as a really useful rule for geek markets and the like is if I see more than about 3 or 4 pieces of Harry Potter merch, I just walk away from any particular artist's table. I only had to do that to 2 of them today, which is improving. These rates are going better. Because, you know, the couple of bits where it's clearly just old stock from before everything happened, that I can kind of handle. But if you're still trying to encourage that property, which, as somebody who was heavily invested in that franchise and is no longer, yeah. So yeah, if you've got too many cool artists to look at and go through their stuff, and you need a way to in the list that you're looking over, it's a really, really handy filter. But only having to take out 2 was nice. Okay, so we've done the name stuff, we've done me trolling you with caramel dancing. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I meant to catch up on with my rambling for today. It's getting more and more interesting how completely unfamiliar the territory is that we're getting into with the flights, just because I've never been further north than Brisbane. And as we're getting up properly to Cape York, it's going to get, like, I think probably the flight after next may be ending in the Torres Strait, which is the bit of water between Australia and Papua New Guinea. We didn't come up with an adjective for the caravan, no. Because there's so many options. But I'm not sure I'm not sure what direction to take the name. Because Erawira? Yeah? Yeah, there's a Hands of the Emperor reference going on, I think. Although my favourite thing to do with the name of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is, in fact, to turn it into Rock the Dwayne Johnson. But I think Erawiran, it's got something. I think me going through the Geriadur is going to be a bit dull for a stream, but we're getting close. And speaking of getting close, we are 9 minutes away from Lizard Island, which will be the one directly in front of us. At which point, I think a rhyming Welsh dictionary, that would be wild. I've just got the that one, which has green stripes on it. Which is, from what I've seen, one of the better basic and learning dictionaries for English to Welsh. Yeah, look, my fluency goals are just get what I can. Like, I've made it further with Welsh than I have with any of my other attempts to learn another language. Because I am a linguistics nerd who's never been able to learn a second language. I'm mostly doing Duolingo as well. I have passed 1 year streak on it, which is wild. Kind of slow progress, but I'm getting further. Like, previous attempts of French has too many things that are written but not pronounced. German, similar. Japanese and Korean, I don't do well switching out of Latin script, apparently. I did better with Korean because it's at least a sensible system, not a full logographic, ideographic mishmash mess. But yeah, Welsh is the one that I'm able to get my head around the most, so that's going interestingly. I don't speak it out loud as much as I possibly should to do some more practice stuff, but then again, outside of these streams, I do a lot less talking than I'm told that normal people do. Attention passengers, we're now approaching Lizard Island, and I've kept the seatbelt sign on, which means I'd like you to have your seatbelts fastened. Enjoy this riddle and more as we come in towards landing, and thank you again for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die. Approach checklist. Seatbelt lights on. Landing lights. We are approaching. Oh, we'll never turn those off, so those are on. Fuel tank selectors both on. Fuel condition high idle. Prop RPM easing it up to max. And pull the power back a little. Flaps we will be taking to approach position when we are a little closer. Let's begin our descent. Set that to, let's call it 3,600 feet for our initial descent. Coming down at 135. Lovely. Oh, and we are back to a traffic channel sort of airport. Lovely. So, what's the weather like there? No strong wind readings from that. That's interesting. So we're going to be doing a full general aviation approach on this. That's going to be fun. .926 meters of runway. Pattern altitude 1,000 feet. So let's actually set that altitude for 1,500. And we'll do an overflight of the airport and see what, I think we'll actually see what the windsock says. That's an exciting one. We've not done proper uncontrolled airport landing in a while. One of the things is that I forgot to turn the heater back on when I got home and before the stream because I was too busy doing social thing and then setting up. So it's currently quite cold in here. I usually have to have the heater, or the fan I have in front of the heater switched off for streams just because it's a bit loud, but it's been below 10. It's theoretically up to about 13, but I don't believe that entirely. And of course, being an Australian house, it is designed for shedding heat, not retaining it. Because this house is also meant to survive a... Oh yeah, look, we're at 4,300 feet and it's 15 degrees outside the plane. It's colder than that at ground level in Canberra at the moment. Yeah. It has been lovely having a stream with company again. Doing proper chattering away. I've had so many times where just being able to average temperatures with somebody. See, right now that sounds delightful. Like, that's a proper summer day by my Australian standards, but still. Okay, here we go with proper... I think just looking at the approaches, I will want runway 12. Yeah, 23 is great. I think we can agree on 23. You're probably a bit wilted at the moment. Lizard Island traffic, Martel 24 is 2 miles to the south at 1500 feet inbound to the land, expecting runway 12. And now we turn off the autopilot and pop down the flaps to our approach setting. And we're going to do a flyover, inspect the runway, and see if we can find a windsock. Watching the speed. Oh, those houses would be interesting when there's aircraft traffic. No windsock visible from that altitude, but... And you know, we didn't capture that hill there, which is good. Speed is dropping, which is I need to keep attention on. Switch that map to relative. But we'll do another overflight from a good angle for doing runway inspections, and maybe we will... No, there is an okay approach for 3-3. Okay, given that all of the parking is at that end, okay, plan established. Oh, 3-0, not 3-3. Why was I saying 3-3? Lizard Island traffic, Martel 24, changing intentions to runway 30, entering downwind length. So, proper traffic pattern sort of landing. Okay. Brakes are off. Inertial separator. Bypass. Okay. And we've got our other pretty little islands out here. I cannot currently check the names of them because we are into the manual flying and... Oh wait. Okay. Lizard Island traffic, Martel 24. A weather report that on the downwind leg, 22 knot headwind. So, redirecting intentions again to runway 12 to not deal with that as a tailwind of final. And this is where we pay attention to our instruments. So in general, you don't want to be landing with a tailwind at all. Better the tailwind than a crosswind. But no. The thing about a tailwind is that, as previously discussed, planes fly relative to the air. I could not find a windsock, at least one visible from the air, but one of the instruments that I have So if we look here, it is in fact just behind the map for you. So, just to the left of the compass and nav line, and just so between the compass and the speed ribbon is a little cross with two numbers, and that is showing the wind direction split into tailwind or headwind and crosswind components. So that is telling me this angle I've got a 20 knot tailwind and a 10 knot crosswind. The tail or head, I'm not quite sure. No, that's tailwind here. So, that is the wind as it exists at about 2,000 feet. But yes, it's one of the useful things that I'm not entirely sure how that instrument does its calculations. It has three modes that I can select between. One shows me just the wind direction and speed. One shows me the wind just relative to the plane, and one gives me that doing the trigonometry for me, because how much I care about the direction is just how much of it is head or tailwind, how much of it is crosswind. Now, the reason that tailwinds and crosswinds suck, and the reason headwinds are good this is all for landing purposes, is that planes fly relative to the air. Landing is relative to the ground. So, if you're doing 120 knots through the air, which is what your instruments show and what your ability to create lift is based on, and you've got a 20 knot tailwind, you're doing 140 knots across the ground. If you've got a 20 knot headwind, you're doing 100 knots across the ground. So you've got a lot more runway. And the reason that crosswinds suck is that you essentially need to be flying in a straight line relative to the ground, which means pointing sideways. Because you need to point sideways enough that you're flying into the wind and counteracting the air is not going the same way. Crosswind landings are alarming to watch. I've done a couple, but you don't do heavy crosswind landings in this sort of plane. Okay, that's showing as a headwind now. Lizard Island. Traffic, Martel 24 is on final runway 12 with a 24 knot headwind to land. And you'd think that there would be all of these really complicated calculations that you'd need to do. But essentially, you get the correct, so it's called a crab angle because, crab walks sideways. And the way you get the correct crab angle is actually, you adjust the way the plane is pointing such that the runway stops moving sideways in the window. And if it happens to be that it is not forward in the window, but it's still not moving side to side, it means it's coming straight towards you, or you are flying straight towards it. Okay, final approach. Seatbelt lights on, flaps to landing position. Ooh, bit of a bump there as we catch the extra lift, and managing the airspeed. And yes, the amount of things that is just, there are so many complicated physics calculations, but in fact you let physics do the calculations and you just track the effect. So I am having to control speed, pitch, roll, yaw at the moment. But in fact, what I want is... There's so many complicated physics things in that. But what I'm actually doing is picking the part of the windscreen that I want the runway to be in, and I want it to be a perfectly vertical line, and I don't want it moving side to side or too much up and down. So, you know, it is not quite a vertical line at the moment, which is why I am scuttling off to one side.
500.
There's the 500-foot call. Hello, houses. I hope don't get too many of a bad day. Oh, that is still a 20-something knot headwind. That's a lot. Oh, and it's a tiny runway. Oh, bumpy. And there's the other main use of the beta range for reversing the engines, which is stopping very quickly on tiny runways. Oh, and we've got a lovely little turning bay here because we went straight past the parking. This runway, I think, we might be one of the bigger planes that can even use this airport. Not too bad of a landing, I think. It was a little firm, but it's the sort of runway where you want to... it's called making a positive landing, where you make sure that when you are lined up, you put the wheels on the ground. Flaps up. You put the wheels on the ground and make sure that you plant it and you don't... It's called floating, where you do your flare and you don't quite drop fast enough, and you're still just in the air and you're using up runway at flight speeds. And given the trees there, I had to land a little long anyway. But with that, I'm glad I noticed that 20-knot headwind, which gets a little spicy because where it bounces off those hills, where the wind bounces off those hills gets turbulent. So yeah, that's an interesting little runway. And yet, little runway. I think the plane... Actually, let's just park here for a moment and just ask the external view. That external view. Yep. The runway is officially approximately the same width as the plane. So, I got that pretty well centered. Like, most runways we go to, you could completely miss this runway and you would end up still on the runway. Lizard Island traffic, Martel 24 is clear of the runway. And, it's just the two guys around here who'll just marshal us into our little parking spot. And yeah, this plane is as big as this airport will fit, possibly slightly over. Not that bad. Yeah. Not pulling in right there, because I need to pull a little further forward than that, dude. And there we go. And parking brake off. We did not get our arrival taxi checklist because, wow. Yeah. Okay, so after landing for arrival taxi. Okay, so landing lights off. We probably just blinded these guys a little. Strobe lights off. At least it's full daylight. And seatbelt lights. Yep. Low idle and prop to minimum. Okay, a little bit abbreviated there because tiny airport. Attention passengers, we've arrived safely on Lizard Island and the local time is 2:12 p.m. Please remain seated until I've completed the shutdown checklist, because queuing for the exit in an 8-seater makes you look even more ridiculous than usual. I mean, there's sunglasses, but then there's also how bright some of these lights are. When you consider how far away the landing and especially strobe lights are meant to be seen from. Larger airports actually have rules against having especially your strobe lights on when you're not on the runway, just because they are exceptionally bright. For a reason, but youch. Okay, shutdown checklist. Parking brake handle is set. Power lever is idle. Bleed air heat switch is off. ITT range is stable. Prop RPM lever to feather. Fuel condition lever to cut. Alerts. And standby alt power off. Okay. Inertial separator handle to normal. And external lights off. Seatbelt light off. Attention passengers, this now concludes our flight from Cairns to Lizard Island, and we here at Martel Air hope you've enjoyed your time in our tiny sky bus. Please wait until I've opened the door and you can calmly deplane in orderly fashion. Our baggage handling services today will be provided by our wonderful passengers, so thank you for not leaving any of your luggage behind. Any personal belongings left behind as you leave the plane will be assumed to be a present to the co-pilot and enjoyed thoroughly. And on your way out, remember that we have a Ko-fi machine in the back of the plane if you wish to support Wing Commander Lamington's dog treats habit. Thank you for flying Martel Air. We hope you don't die. Internal lighting off. Fuel boost off. NG is at 0. Avionics 2 off. Avionics 1 off. Battery switch off. And fuel tank selectors both off. So that brings us to the end of today's flight. Did not park entirely straight, but I was trying not to hit the ground handling staff and also get far enough forward that other people can get behind us at this tiny airport. Airstrip. I think this is actually smaller than Mount Beauty, so this may be the smallest strip we've flown into. It's kind of delightful. Hopefully you've enjoyed that. I have definitely enjoyed your company for having our little flight going on. And unless you have any last minute questions, I will leave it there, and I will see you hopefully next week for some more chaos and flying further up the Cape York Peninsula. I feel like there's at least one tangent I didn't finish. Alright. See you and any silent passengers? Yeah. If there's an unfulfilled tangent, we'll either remember it or not. But I will see you and any of the silent passengers next week.